Welcome to the second episode in a Legendarium series about the merry history of Christmas. In part 2, we will talk about the evolution of the Christmas holiday during the medieval and early modern eras. By the High Middle Ages, Christianity had, for the most part, replaced pagan religion. On Christmas, believers attended church, then celebrated raucously in a drunken, carnival-like atmosphere. Each year, a beggar or student would be crowned Lord of Misrule, and eager celebrants played the part of his loyal subjects. In Rochester, England, a boy was once elected Christmas bishop, and he promptly ordered the execution of his school teachers. Much like in Roman Saturnalia, the medieval social order turned upside down as the poor could go to the houses of the rich and demand entry this one day of the year. Once inside, the lords gave them their best meat, bread, and drink. And if the rich men failed to comply, their visitors would pour into their house, beat up their servants, take their best food, and smash their belongings on the way out. Christmas became the time when the upper classes could repay their real or imagined debt to society by entertaining the poor. This method of celebrating Christmas continued through the early modern age. By the early 16th century, a wave of religious reform changed the way that Europeans celebrated Christmas. Protestants came to see the Catholic Church as corrupt and half-pagan, with holidays like Christmas having no grounding in Scripture. Some Protestants tried to reform holidays, much as the early church had during Roman times. For example, Martin Luther created the Christ child as a prototype for Santa Claus, bringing happiness and treats to good children. Yet in other Protestant countries, Christmas truly came under fire. When Oliver Cromwell and his hardline Protestants took over England in 1647, they vowed to rid England of all things decadent, at least decadent in their opinion. As part of their effort, Cromwell's Puritans cancelled Christmas, demanding that the shops remain open and the churches remain closed. Officials began touring the streets, making sure that everyone followed Cromwell's edict. They found themselves opposed by local toughs, who forced shopkeepers to close once the officials went elsewhere. In 1656, the county of Kent passed a resolution stating that they would see the king back on the throne if it meant restoring Christmas. They received their wish 4 years later when King Charles II returned to power and restored Christmas to England. However, hope for the Puritan experiment survived on the other side of the Atlantic. The Pilgrims, English separatists that came to America in 1620, bitterly opposed Christmas and anything else they saw as too Catholic. From 1659 to 1681, the city of Boston outright banned the celebration of Christmas. Anyone found celebrating the holiday paid a fine of 5 shillings. By contrast, the Jamestown settlement saw Christmas without trouble. There, John Smith and his new arrivals ate oysters, wild fowl, and became the first Europeans in America to drink eggnog by mixing rum with raw eggs. Yet the holiday would change again, not because of a spiritual revolution, but a political one. After the American Revolution, English customs fell out of favor, including Christmas. A wave of reform swept the calendar clean of old religious holidays. It marked a great change for the old Virginia aristocracy, which rang in Christmas with dancing, feasting, and hunting, unlike their New England counterparts. Now, the United States Congress met on December 25, 1789, and continued to do so for 67 years. It would not be until the 19th century that Americans began reinventing Christmas from a raucous carnival day into a family-centered day of peace. This happened because of trouble within the United States as the industrial and commercial revolutions unfolded. Some cities saw not only dramatic growth, but profound economic change. A few families became fabulously rich, a few more became the middle class, but many more became a class of anonymous and unconnected poor. Unemployment rose fast, and gang rioting by the jobless often took place during the Christmas season. One Christmas riot in 1828 led to the formation of the New York Municipal Police Department. America's middle class sought to find an answer for these troubling questions about the poor and what the rich owed them. This movement became strongest in places that changed the most, of course, New York, but also in some of the cities of Puritan New England, which originally banned Christmas. In 1819, best-selling author Washington Irving wrote The Sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon, a series of stories about the celebration of Christmas in an English manor house. The sketches feature a squire who invites the peasants into his home for the holiday. In contrast to the riots faced by American society, rich and poor mingle effortlessly in Irving's book, sharing in the kindly squire's good food and wine. In Irving's mind, Christmas should be a peaceful, warm-hearted holiday that united people across class divisions. Irving's fictitious celebrants enjoyed ancient customs, including crowning a lord of misrule. Irving so loved Christmas that in 1835 he helped launch the St. Nicholas Society of the City of New York, serving as its secretary until 1841. A generation later, English literary great Charles Dickens created the holiday tale A Christmas Carol. It described the redemption of unpleasant miser Ebenezer Scrooge at Christmas time. The story's message about charity and goodwill towards all men, rich and poor, struck a chord in the United States and England. Dickens hoped his story would inspire the middle class towards charity and thus restore social peace. After Dickens read A Christmas Carol out loud in New York to a live audience, a factory owner turned to his wife and promised to give his workers Christmas off next year. This change in attitudes towards Christmas coincided with a change among middle-class families. Previously, families served as economic units and engines of discipline, with parents teaching their sons and daughters to work hard and be obedient. Those who did not could expect a good thrashing. Now, middle-class families wish to make their children kind-hearted and happy people, but without overindulging them. Christmas provided families with a day to lavish attention and gifts upon their children without appearing to spoil them. Although most families bought into the idea that they celebrated ancient Christmas traditions, Americans really reinvented a holiday to fill the needs of a changing country. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.